It was a warm Sunday morning in the small town of Pine Creek. The sun was bright in the sky, and many people were at the town square for the big summer fair. The main event this year was something special that had everyone talking. A dog named Bruno was going to cook food for the crowd. Bruno was a big German shepherd with soft brown eyes and a black and tan coat that shined in the sun. He belonged to Emma, a kind woman who ran the local animal shelter. Emma had taught Bruno many tricks over the years, but his cooking skills were what made him famous in town. He could flip burgers, turn hot dogs, and even add sauce to food with special tools Emma made just for his paws. The cooking show was set up in the middle of the town square. There was a small stage with a grill, a table with food, and a sign that said Bruno's Cooking Show. All money goes to helping animals. Around the stage, many chairs were set up for people to sit and watch. By 10 in the morning, almost every seat was full. Kids sat on the ground in front, their eyes wide with wonder as they waited for the dog chef to appear. Emma walked onto the stage wearing a blue apron. The crowd clapped as she waved and smiled. "Thank you all for coming today," she said into a small microphone. "Bruno and I are very happy to cook for you and raise money for the animals at our shelter. Are you ready to meet the best dog chef in Pine Creek?" The crowd cheered loudly. Children jumped up and down with excitement. Emma turned to the side of the stage and called, "Bruno, come on out, boy." Bruno trotted onto the stage wearing a small white chef's hat and a red apron that said Top Dog Chef. The crowd went wild. Bruno sat down and raised his paw in a wave, just as Emma had taught him. More cheers filled the air. Emma helped Bruno put on special cooking gloves that fit over his front paws. These gloves let him pick up cooking tools without hurting himself. Today, Bruno will make his famous burger and hot dog combo, Emma told the crowd. She helped Bruno stand on his back legs at the grill. With his special gloves, Bruno picked up a spatula. Emma put some burger patties on the grill, and Bruno carefully flipped them when she told him to. The crowd clapped every time he did something right. The cooking show was going well. Bruno was flipping burgers and turning hot dogs like a pro. The smell of good food filled the air. People in the crowd were smiling and taking pictures with their phones. Some were putting money in the donation box near the stage. Then, a loud noise cut through the happy sounds of the fair. It was the roar of a motorcycle engine, getting closer and closer to the town square. People turned to look as a big black motorcycle pulled up near the stage. The rider was a tall man with a black leather jacket covered in patches. He had a thick beard and dark sunglasses that hid his eyes. His name was Ray, and he was known in town for being mean and always looking for trouble. Ray got off his motorcycle and walked toward the stage, pushing past people in the crowd. He looked angry as he watched Bruno cooking on the grill. "What is this stupid show?" he said in a loud voice that many people could hear. "A dog cooking food. That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen." Emma heard him and looked worried. Bruno kept cooking, not understanding that trouble was coming their way. The happy crowd suddenly went quiet as Ray made his way to the front, his heavy boots stomping on the ground with each step. Ray pushed his way to the front of the crowd. His face was red with anger, and he smelled like cigarettes. The people around him moved back, not wanting to get in his way. Parents pulled their children closer. The happy mood of the fair was now tense and scary. "This is stupid," Ray shouted again. "Who wants to eat food made by a dog? That's not clean." He pointed at Bruno, who was still standing at the grill, looking confused by the sudden change in the crowd. Emma stepped forward. She was scared of Ray, but she needed to protect Bruno and the show. "Sir, please lower your voice. You're scaring the children," she said in a calm voice. "Bruno is very clean, and I make sure all the food is safe. This is for a good cause, to help animals that need homes." Ray laughed in a mean way. "A good cause? It's just a trick to get money from people. That dog doesn't know what he's doing. He's just been trained like a monkey in a circus." Some people in the crowd started to whisper. A few nodded, as if they might agree with Ray. Emma felt her heart sink. She had worked so hard to set up this event, and Bruno had practiced his cooking tricks for weeks. "That's not true," said a small voice from the front row. It was a little girl named Lily, about 7 years old, with pigtails and a pink dress. She stood up and looked right at Ray. "Bruno is smart. He loves to cook. My mom adopted our cat from Miss Emma's shelter, and that money helped save lots of animals." Ray turned to look at the little girl. For a moment, it seemed like he might yell at her too. But then an older man stood up beside Lily. It was Mr. Parker, who owned the local hardware store. "The girl is right," Mr. Parker said. "Emma and Bruno do good work for this town. Every penny they raise goes to help animals. My dog Rusty came from their shelter, and he's the best friend I've ever had." More people started to stand up. Mrs. Chen from the bakery, Coach Thomas from the high school, even old Mr. Wilson, who everyone knew didn't like many people, stood up with his cane. "We support Emma and Bruno," Mrs. Chen said. "If you don't like the show, you can leave." Ray looked around at all the people standing up. He had not expected this. He was used to people being afraid of him, not standing up to him. His face got even redder, but now it seemed more from embarrassment than anger. "Whatever," he muttered. "I still think it's dumb." But his voice was not as loud or sure as before. Bruno, who had been watching all of this from the stage, suddenly did something no one expected. He put down his cooking tools, walked to the edge of the stage, and sat down right in front of Ray. The big dog looked up at the angry man and held out his paw, like he wanted to shake hands. The crowd went silent. Emma held her breath. This was not a trick she had taught Bruno. He was doing this on his own. Ray stared at the dog's outstretched paw. Bruno's brown eyes looked up at him without fear or anger. The dog's tail wagged slowly, friendly and hopeful. "What's he doing?" Ray asked, his voice much quieter now. Emma stepped closer. "He wants to be your friend. Bruno always tries to make peace when there's trouble. He can sense when someone is upset." The crowd watched, waiting to see what would happen. Would Ray be mean to Bruno? Would he leave the fair? Or would something else happen? Slowly, Ray reached out his hand. His fingers, rough from years of motorcycle riding, touched Bruno's soft paw. The dog's tail wagged faster. "I've never had a dog," Ray said in a voice so quiet that only Emma and the people closest could hear. There was something sad in his voice, something that hinted at a lonely life. Emma saw something change in Ray's face, a small softening around his eyes, the start of what might be a smile hiding under his thick beard. "Would you like to learn more about what Bruno can do?" Emma asked carefully. "He knows more tricks than just cooking." Ray looked at Bruno, who was still holding his paw out patiently. Then he looked at the crowd watching him. Ray stood very still, looking at Bruno's paw in his hand. The big dog's fur was soft and warm. Ray felt something strange inside his chest, a feeling he had not felt in a long time. It was hard for him to understand what was happening. "Fine," Ray said after a long moment. "Show me what else this dog can do." His voice was still rough, but the anger was gone. Emma smiled with relief. "Bruno, come back to the grill," she called. Bruno gave Ray's hand one more gentle push with his nose, then trotted back to his cooking station. The crowd started to relax. Some people sat down again, but they all kept watching, curious about what would happen next. "Bruno doesn't just cook," Emma explained. "He also helps train the scared dogs at our shelter. He shows them how to trust people again." She looked at Ray. "Would you like to come up and help with the cooking show?" The crowd gasped. No one expected Emma to invite the angry biker to join the show. Ray looked surprised too. He glanced around at all the faces watching him. For a second, it seemed like he might say no and walk away. "I don't know how to cook," Ray mumbled. "That's okay," Emma said. "Bruno will show you." Slowly, Ray walked up the steps to the small stage. He looked big and out of place next to Emma and Bruno. His black leather jacket had patches with scary pictures on it. His boots were heavy on the wooden stage. But his face no longer looked angry. Now he just looked nervous. "Here," Emma said, holding out a clean apron. "You can wear this." Ray stared at the apron. It was bright yellow with the words "Helper Chef" on it. Some kids in the crowd giggled. Ray's face turned red again. "I'm not wearing that," he said. Bruno made a small whining sound and tilted his head, looking at Ray with big eyes. It was as if the dog was asking him to please wear the apron. Ray sighed. "Fine. Just this once." He took the apron and put it on over his leather jacket. More people laughed, but not in a mean way. They were happy to see the scary biker joining the fun. "Now," Emma said, "Bruno will show you how to make the perfect burger." She nodded to Bruno, who picked up a spatula with his special gloves. The dog moved to the grill where several burger patties were cooking. With careful movements, Bruno flipped a burger, then looked at Ray. "He wants you to try," Emma explained. Ray took a spatula and tried to copy what Bruno had done. His big hands were not used to such careful work, and he almost dropped the burger. But Bruno made an encouraging bark, and Ray tried again. This time he flipped the burger perfectly. The crowd clapped and cheered. A small smile appeared on Ray's face. He quickly tried to hide it, but Emma saw it. She handed him a plate. "Now Bruno will show you how to build the burger," she said. Bruno picked up a bun with his gloved paws and placed it on the plate. Then he carefully added the cooked patty. Next came cheese, lettuce, and a slice of tomato. Bruno pointed with his nose to the bottles of ketchup and mustard. Ray watched closely, then built his own burger just like Bruno had shown him. When he finished, he held up the plate. The crowd cheered again, louder this time. "Ladies and gentlemen," Emma announced, "Bruno and his new assistant have made the first burgers of the day. Who would like to try them?" Many hands went up in the crowd. Emma pointed to Lily, the little girl who had first stood up to Ray. "Would you like to try Ray's burger?" she asked. Lily nodded and came up to the stage. Ray knelt down to give her the burger he had made. His hands were shaking a little. "Is it good?" he asked after Lily took a big bite. Lily chewed thoughtfully. Everyone waited for her answer. Even Bruno seemed to be holding his breath. "It's the best burger ever," Lily said with a big smile. Ketchup was on her cheeks, but her eyes were shining with happiness. For the first time, Ray let his smile show fully. It changed his whole face, making him look younger and kinder. Bruno wagged his tail and made a happy bark. "Well," Emma said, looking at Ray with new interest, "it seems Bruno has found himself a good cooking partner." The rest of the morning went by fast. Ray and Bruno worked side by side at the grill, making burgers and hot dogs for the happy crowd. Ray started to enjoy himself. He even laughed when Bruno used his nose to push a bottle of ketchup closer to Ray's hand. "You're really good with him," Emma said as they worked. "Most new people can't understand Bruno's signals so quickly." Ray shrugged. "I had a dog when I was a kid, a long time ago." His voice got quiet at the end, and he looked away. Emma wanted to ask more, but she could tell Ray didn't want to talk about it. Instead, she showed him and Bruno how to make their special animal shelter cookies. These were simple cookies shaped like bones and paw prints that people could buy to help raise more money. As they worked, more and more people came to watch the show. Word had spread around the fair about the mean biker who was now helping the cooking dog. Everyone wanted to see if it was true. The donation box by the stage filled up with money. "We've never made this much at a fair before," Emma told Ray during a short break. "Thanks for helping." Ray looked down at his boots. "I almost ruined your show," he said. "I was being a jerk." "But you changed," Emma said. "That's what matters." Bruno barked as if he agreed. The big dog had stayed close to Ray all morning. When they weren't cooking, Bruno would sit next to Ray, sometimes leaning against his leg. Ray had started to pet Bruno's head without even thinking about it. After they sold the last of the cookies, Emma announced that the cooking show was taking a lunch break. The crowd slowly went to other parts of the fair. Ray started to take off his apron. "Are you leaving?" Emma asked. She tried not to sound disappointed. Ray nodded. "Got things to do," he said, but he didn't look happy about going. Just then, Mr. Parker came up to the stage. The hardware store owner was holding a paper bag and a cold drink. "Thought you might be hungry after all that cooking," he said to Ray. "My wife made extra sandwiches." Ray looked surprised. "For me?" Mr. Parker nodded. "You did good work up there with Emma and Bruno." The whole town saw it. Ray slowly took the bag. "Thanks," he said, sounding confused, like he wasn't used to people being nice to him. "Why don't you stay and eat with us?" Emma suggested. "Bruno and I always have a picnic lunch behind the stage. There's a nice shady spot under the big oak tree." Bruno made an excited sound at the word picnic and ran to get a small cooler that was sitting near the edge of the stage. He dragged it with his teeth to show Ray. "See, Bruno wants you to stay too," Emma said with a smile. Ray looked at the dog, then at Emma, then at Mr. Parker, who was smiling too. "I guess I could stay for a bit," he finally said. The three of them, Emma, Ray, and Bruno, sat under the oak tree. They spread out a red and white checked blanket and put out their food. Bruno had his own special bowl of dog food, but Emma also gave him a plain burger patty as a treat for being so good during the show. As they ate, Ray started to tell them about his motorcycle. "Been riding for 15 years, he said. "Been all over the country on that bike." "That sounds exciting," Emma said. "I've never been out of this state." "It gets lonely," Ray admitted. This seemed hard for him to say. "Just me and the road most days." Bruno moved closer to Ray and put his head on Ray's knee. The big dog looked up at him with understanding eyes. "How did you find Bruno?" Ray asked Emma, patting the dog's head. Emma's face grew sad. "He was chained up behind an old house. The people moved away and just left him there. He was so skinny when I found him. And scared of everything, especially men." Ray looked down at Bruno in surprise. "This dog? Scared, but he's so friendly." "It took months of love and care," Emma explained. "But Bruno has a special heart. Once he learned to trust again, he wanted to help other scared animals learn to trust too." She smiled at Bruno. "That's why he's so good at the shelter. He shows the other dogs that people can be kind." Ray was quiet for a long time after that. He kept petting Bruno, who had fallen asleep with his head still on Ray's knee. After lunch, Ray helped Emma pack up the picnic things. Bruno shook himself awake and stretched in the sun that came through the tree branches. The afternoon part of the fair was starting. More people were coming to the town square. "The second cooking show starts in 30 minutes, Emma said, looking at her watch. "Will you stay and help again?" She tried not to look too hopeful, but Bruno had no such problem. The dog looked up at Ray with big eyes, his tail wagging in question. Ray had planned to leave after lunch. He had told himself he would just stay for a little while, then get back on his motorcycle and hit the road again. That was his normal life, never staying too long in one place. But now, looking at Bruno's hopeful face and Emma's kind smile, he felt something tugging at him to stay. "I guess I could help with one more show," Ray said. Bruno barked happily and ran in a quick circle around Ray's legs. As they walked back to the cooking stage, Ray saw a group of 5 men in leather jackets standing by his motorcycle. His face got hard again, and he stopped walking. "Friends of yours?" Emma asked, seeing the change in Ray's face. "Not friends," Ray said in a low voice. "Just guys I know from riding. They're from the next town over. Not good people." The men saw Ray and called out to him. "Hey Ray, what are you doing here? We've been looking for you." The man who spoke was tall with a long beard. He had a skull tattoo on his neck. "Who's the lady, Ray?" Another man asked in a way that wasn't nice. "And why are you wearing that stupid apron?" Ray realized he still had on the yellow helper chef apron. His face got red. He quickly took it off and stuffed it behind his back. But it was too late. The men had seen it and were laughing. "Ray's playing chef," the man with the skull tattoo said. "Wait till the others hear about this." Bruno didn't like the men's loud voices. The dog moved closer to Emma and made a low growling sound. He could tell these men were not nice, and his job was to protect Emma. "It's not what you think, Mike," Ray said to the man with the skull tattoo. "I was just—" He stopped, not sure what to say. How could he explain that he was helping a dog cook burgers and enjoying it? "Just what?" Mike asked, stepping closer. "Playing house with some lady and her mutt. That's not the Ray we know. The Ray we know is tough. He doesn't make cookies and wear yellow aprons." Ray's hands made fists at his sides. He looked angry again, but also something else. Embarrassed. He glanced at Emma, then at Bruno, then back at the men. "We're heading to Jackson City," Mike said. "There's a big bike rally there this weekend. You should come with us. Forget this stupid fair and these stupid people." Emma watched Ray's face. She could see he was fighting with himself inside. Part of him wanted to go with the men, to be the tough biker they thought he was. But another part had enjoyed the morning with Bruno, making people happy with their cooking. "Ray," Emma said quietly, "the show will start soon. But it's your choice. No one will think badly of you if you want to go with these men." Bruno whined softly and took a step toward Ray. The dog looked confused, like he couldn't understand why Ray might leave. Ray looked at Bruno, then at Emma, then at his motorcycle, and finally at Mike and the other men. They were waiting for him, expecting him to join them. That's what the old Ray would have done. The Ray who was always angry at the world. The Ray who didn't care about anyone or anything. But now he thought about the little girl Lily saying his burger was the best ever. He thought about Mr. Parker bringing him lunch. He thought about Bruno offering his paw when Ray was being mean. And he thought about the story Emma told him, about Bruno being left behind, but learning to trust again. "What's it gonna be, Ray?" Mike asked impatiently. "Are you coming with us or staying here playing with the dog?" Ray took a deep breath. What he said next would change everything. Ray looked at Mike and the other bikers. These were the kind of men he had spent years riding with. They were tough and mean, and they didn't care about anyone but themselves, just like Ray used to be. "I'm staying here," Ray said in a clear, strong voice. "I promise to help with the cooking show." Mike's mouth fell open in surprise. The other bikers looked at each other, not sure if Ray was joking. "You're choosing a dog and some cooking show over us?" Mike asked. He sounded angry now. "What's wrong with you, Ray?" Ray stood up straighter. "Nothing's wrong with me. For the first time in a long time. Something's right." He looked down at Bruno, who was watching him with those smart brown eyes. "I made a promise to help, and I'm going to keep it." Mike stepped closer to Ray. His face was red with anger. "You've gone soft," he said in a low, mean voice. "Wait till I tell everyone that tough Ray is now a dog's helper." Ray didn't back down. "Tell them whatever you want. I don't care anymore." Bruno moved to stand next to Ray. The dog's body was tense, ready to protect his new friend if needed. Mike noticed this and laughed. "Look at that. The mutt thinks he's tough too." He reached out his hand, as if to push Bruno away. Ray moved quickly, putting himself between Mike and Bruno. "Don't touch him," Ray said in a voice that made Mike step back. "Bruno and Emma are my friends now. And if you mess with my friends, you mess with me." The other bikers looked nervous. They knew Ray was stronger than any of them. Even Mike, who liked to act tough, was afraid of Ray when he got angry. "Whatever," Mike said, trying to sound like he didn't care. "We don't need you anyway. Come on, guys." He turned and walked away. The other bikers followed him, looking back a few times at Ray. When they were gone, Emma let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "That was brave," she said to Ray. "Those men looked scary." Ray shook his head. "They're just bullies. I used to be one too." He looked sad when he said this. I'm sorry I was mean to you and Bruno earlier. Emma smiled. You've already made up for that. And Bruno forgave you the moment you shook his paw. As if to show this was true, Bruno pushed his head against Ray's hand, asking for pets. Ray smiled and rubbed Bruno's ears. We'd better get ready for the next show, he said. People will be waiting. They walked back to the cooking stage together. Ray put his yellow apron back on without anyone asking him to. This time, he didn't look embarrassed to wear it. The afternoon show was even better than the morning one. Ray and Bruno worked together like they had been a team for years. Ray showed the crowd how Bruno had taught him to flip burgers. Bruno showed everyone how he could balance a hot dog bun on his nose before catching it. The crowd loved it. Lily and her friends sat in the front row, clapping for every trick. Mr. Parker and Mrs. Chen were there too, along with many other people from town. The donation box filled up again with money for the animal shelter. After the show, many people came up to talk to Ray. They didn't see him as the scary biker anymore. Now he was Bruno's friend and helper. Ray found himself smiling and talking to people he would have avoided just one day ago. You're a natural with the crowd, Emma told him as they cleaned up the cooking area. The show has never been this successful before. Ray felt a warm feeling in his chest. It had been a long time since he had done something good, something that helped others. It felt nice to be part of something that mattered. As the sun started to go down, the fair began to close for the day. Families headed home, tired but happy. The food stands shut down. The games and rides turned off their lights. Well, Emma said, looking at Ray, that's it for today. Thank you for all your help. Ray nodded but didn't say anything. He was looking at his motorcycle, still parked where he had left it that morning. It was time for him to go, to get back on the road. That's what he always did. He never stayed in one place for long. But for the first time, Ray didn't want to leave. Ray stood by his motorcycle, keys in hand. The fair was almost empty now. The sun was setting, painting the sky with orange and pink colors. It was a beautiful evening, the kind that usually made Ray happy to be on the open road. Emma and Bruno were packing up the last of the cooking equipment. They had raised more money for the animal shelter than ever before. Emma looked tired but happy. Bruno was still full of energy, carrying small items to Emma's truck in his mouth. So, Emma said, walking over to Ray, where will you go now? Ray looked down at his keys. Don't know. Just somewhere. That's how it had been for years. Just him and his bike, going from town to town, never staying long enough to make friends or put down roots. Bruno trotted over with a small cooler in his mouth. He put it down by Emma's feet, then sat next to Ray, leaning against his leg. The dog seemed to know Ray was thinking of leaving. You know, Emma said carefully, the animal shelter is short on helpers, especially people who are good with the scared dogs. She petted Bruno's head. Bruno likes you, and he's a good judge of character. Ray looked surprised. You're offering me a job at the animal shelter? Emma nodded. Just part-time, if you want. The pay isn't much, but she looked like she wanted to say more but wasn't sure she should. But what? Ray asked. But it would mean you could stay in town for a while. Get to know people. Maybe find a place to belong. Emma's face was a little red now. Only if you want to, of course. Ray thought about this. He hadn't stayed in one place for more than a few weeks and years. The idea scared him a little. But then he thought about the day he had just had. Cooking with Bruno. Making people smile. Standing up to Mike and the other bikers. It had been the best day he could remember in a long time. Bruno made a small whining sound and pushed his head against Ray's hand. I think he's asking you to stay, Emma said with a smile. Ray petted Bruno's soft head. I'm not good with people, he admitted. I don't know how to fit in. You did pretty well today, Emma said. And besides, you'd be working mostly with the dogs at first, just helping to feed them and walk them, and maybe teaching them some of Bruno's cooking tricks. This made Ray smile a little. I'm not sure the world is ready for more cooking dogs. You never know, Emma said. Bruno might start a trend. As they talked, Mr. Parker walked up to them. He had stayed to help clean up after the fair. Evening, Ray, he said. Got a question for you. My nephew runs the auto shop in town. He's looking for someone who knows motorcycles. I mentioned you might be interested. Ray was surprised again. Me? Work at an auto shop? Mr. Parker nodded. Jake says he needs someone who really understands bikes. From the look of yours, you know how to keep a machine running well. Ray looked at his motorcycle. It was old but in perfect condition. He had always been good with engines. Between the shelter and the auto shop, you could make a decent living, Emma said. And Mrs. Chen mentioned she has a small apartment for rent above her bakery. It's nothing fancy, but it's clean and quiet. Ray couldn't believe what he was hearing. In just one day, he had gone from being an angry loner to someone being offered jobs and a place to live. It was like the whole town had decided he belonged here. I don't understand, Ray said. This morning I was a jerk to everyone. Now you all want me to stay. Mr. Parker put a hand on Ray's shoulder. This town believes in second chances, son. We all saw how you changed today. How you stood up for Bruno and Emma against those other bikers. That showed us who you really are. Bruno barked as if he agreed. The dog's tail wagged happily. Ray looked at his motorcycle again, then at Bruno, Emma, and Mr. Parker. For the first time in years, the open road didn't seem as appealing as staying put. I guess I could try it, Ray said slowly. For a little while. Emma's face lit up with a bright smile. Bruno jumped up and down, barking with joy. Mr. Parker nodded, looking pleased. One condition, though, Ray added, trying to look serious. Bruno has to teach me that trick with the hot dog bun on his nose. That was pretty cool. 3 months had passed since the summer fair. The leaves on the trees had turned yellow and red. The air was cooler now, and people in Pine Creek wore light jackets when they went outside. Ray had changed almost as much as the season. He still had his motorcycle and his leather jacket, but he smiled more now. He had a home in the small apartment above Mrs. Chen's bakery. Every morning, he woke up to the smell of fresh bread. Mrs. Chen always saved a loaf for him. During the day, Ray worked at Jake's auto shop, fixing cars and motorcycles. He was good at his job, and people came from other towns to have Ray work on their bikes. He had a special way with engines that made them run better than before. In the evenings and on weekends, Ray helped at Emma's animal shelter. At first, he had just fed the dogs and cleaned their cages. But soon he started working with the scared dogs, the ones who were afraid of people. Ray was patient with them. He understood what it was like to be afraid of getting close to others. Bruno was always by Ray's side at the shelter. The big dog seemed to know which animals needed extra help. Together, Ray and Bruno had helped many dogs overcome their fear and find new homes. Today was Saturday, and Ray was at the shelter. He sat on the floor in a quiet room with a small, skinny dog who had been found on the side of the road. The dog was brown with white paws and had sad eyes. He was hiding in the corner, shaking. "It's okay, buddy," Ray said in a soft voice. "No one's going to hurt you here." Ray didn't move closer. He just sat there, talking quietly. Bruno lay next to Ray, watching the scared dog with kind eyes. Emma came into the room with a bowl of food. "How's it going with Rusty?" she asked, keeping her voice low. "Better," Ray said. "He stopped growling at me. That's progress." Emma smiled. She put the food bowl down halfway between Ray and Rusty, then left the room. She knew Ray had a special way with the scared dogs. She trusted him to help Rusty learn to trust people again. Ray didn't try to make Rusty come to him. He didn't force anything. He just sat there, sometimes talking softly to the dog, sometimes just being quiet. Bruno stayed calm beside him. After a while, Rusty's nose started twitching. He could smell the food. Very slowly, Rusty took one step away from the corner, then another. His eyes never left Ray, watching for any sign of danger. But Ray just sat still, pretending not to notice. Bruno gave a gentle wag of his tail, encouraging the scared dog. Rusty made it to the food bowl and quickly ate everything in it. When he finished, he looked at Ray again. Instead of running back to his corner, he stayed by the empty bowl. His tail gave a tiny wag. "That's it," Ray said softly. "You're doing great, buddy." Bruno stood up slowly and walked to Rusty. The two dogs sniffed each other. Then Bruno did something amazing. He went to a toy box in the corner of the room, picked out a soft ball, and brought it back to Rusty. He dropped the ball at Rusty's feet, then backed away. Rusty looked at the ball, then at Bruno, then at Ray. Slowly, he picked up the ball in his mouth. "Look at that," Ray said, smiling. "He wants to play." Bruno barked softly, as if saying, "Of course he does. Everyone needs to play." For the next hour, Ray watched as Bruno taught Rusty how to play with toys. The scared dog started to relax. His tail wagged more. He even made playful jumps toward Bruno. Ray didn't try to join in. He knew Rusty wasn't ready for that yet, but that was okay. There was no rush. Through the window of the room, Ray could see the main street of Pine Creek. People were walking by, going to shops or the cafe. Some of them waved when they saw Ray in the window. He waved back. From where he sat, Ray could also see his motorcycle parked outside the shelter. It was clean and shiny, ready for the road. But Ray wasn't thinking about leaving anymore. For the first time in his life, he had found a place where he belonged. Bruno came over and put his head on Ray's knee. Rusty watched from a few feet away, still holding the soft ball in his mouth. His eyes didn't look so sad now. "We're making progress," Ray said to Bruno, petting his head. "Just like me." Bruno's tail wagged, and Ray smiled. This was exactly where he wanted to be. 1 year had passed since the day Ray met Bruno at the summer fair. It was fair time again in Pine Creek, and the town square was full of people, games, and food stands. This year's fair was bigger than ever before. The main attraction was still Bruno's cooking show, but it was different now. A big sign over the stage read "Bruno and Ray's Cooking Show, helping animals find homes." There were pictures of dogs and cats who needed families on the sides of the stage. Ray stood next to Bruno, both wearing matching chef hats and aprons. They worked together at the grill, making burgers and hot dogs. Ray no longer felt strange wearing an apron. He was proud to be Bruno's partner. And now, Emma announced to the crowd, "Bruno will show you his famous hot dog bun trick." The crowd cheered as Bruno balanced a bun on his nose, then flipped it up and caught it perfectly. Children clapped and laughed. "My turn," Ray said with a smile. He put a bun on his nose and tried to catch it like Bruno, but it fell to the ground. The crowd laughed, and Ray laughed too. He was not embarrassed. He picked up the bun and tried again. This time he caught it, and everyone cheered. In the front row sat Lily, now a year older but still Bruno's biggest fan. Next to her was Rusty, the once scared dog who was now healthy and happy. Rusty lived with Lily's family now. He had been the first dog Ray had helped find a home. After the cooking show, people lined up to eat the food and to learn about the dogs and cats at the shelter. Pictures and stories of animals needing homes were on a big board. Since Ray had started working at the shelter, twice as many animals had found families. As the day went on, Ray saw a group of motorcycles pull into the town square. His heart beat faster when he recognized Mike's bike among them. The bikers parked and walked toward the cooking stage. Ray stood up straight, ready to protect Bruno and Emma if needed. But when Mike got closer, Ray could see something was different. Mike didn't look angry. He actually looked embarrassed. "Hey Ray," Mike said, stopping a few feet away. "Nice show." He wasn't being mean or sarcastic. He seemed to really mean it. "Thanks," Ray said, still careful. "What brings you and the guys to Pine Creek?" Mike looked at the ground, then back at Ray. "Heard about what you're doing here, helping dogs and stuff. Working at the shop." He paused. Sounds like you found a good place. Ray nodded. I did. Bruno walked up to Mike and sat down in front of him. Just like a year ago. He held out his paw to shake. Mike looked surprised, then slowly shook Bruno's paw. Smart dog, Mike said. The smartest, Ray agreed. Want to try a burger? Bruno made it himself. Mike looked unsure, but then nodded. Ray gave him a burger fresh off the grill. Mike took a bite, and his eyes widened. That's really good, he said, sounding surprised. Bruno's a great cook, Ray said with pride. And a great friend. Mike looked at Ray for a long moment. You've changed, he said finally. Ray smiled. For the better, I hope. Yeah, Mike said. For the better. He looked around at the fair, at the happy people, at Bruno. It's nice here. It is, Ray agreed. There's an auto shop in town that's always looking for good mechanics, if any of you guys are interested. Mike's eyes showed surprise, then something else, maybe hope. Really? Ray nodded. The town believes in second chances. I'm living proof of that. As Ray talked with Mike and the other bikers, Emma watched from nearby. Bruno sat at her feet, his tail wagging slowly. Emma smiled as she saw Ray inviting his old riding friends to be part of his new life. He's come a long way, Mr. Parker said, coming to stand beside Emma. All because of a cooking dog and a second chance. Emma nodded. Bruno always knows who needs help, even when they don't know it themselves. As the sun began to set on another successful fair, Ray looked around at the town that had become his home, at Bruno who had become his best friend, at Emma who had become, well, maybe more than a friend, though Ray was still working up the courage to tell her that. 1 year ago, Ray had been angry at the world, always moving, never belonging anywhere. Now he had a home, friends, and purpose, all because a brave dog had offered his paw instead of backing away in fear. Bruno looked up at Ray and barked happily, as if to say, see, I told you it would all work out. Ray smiled and patted Bruno's head. You were right, buddy. You were right all along.